Back with India market close, big day of news flow, state election verdict out. It's not that the China stimulus was any higher and the equity markets have reacted duly. Now, if today was a big day, tomorrow is a very important day as well because the 6-member Monetary Policy Committee has already begun deliberations on interest rates and will announce the decision tomorrow. Pallavi Johnson with what the street is penciling in. Pallavi, anything at all?
Right. So the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, the Monetary Policy Committee is set to announce its decision. Now, of the 43 economists polled by Bloomberg, actually only 3 expect a change in the benchmark lending rate. That's the repo rate, which is currently at 6.5%. All of the others expect the central bank to continue to maintain a status quo. Still, it's going to be an event worth watching out for, and I'll tell you why. It's the first MPC meet after the appointment of the new external members. That's Saugata Bhattacharya, Nagesh Kumar, and Ram Singh. What we're also going to be watching out for is any possible rewording in communication from the central bank. That's because we have seen some easing in several high-frequency indicators, be it PMI, be it India's merchandise trade, or be it the index of core industries, among others. Now, what else has changed since the last policy? Let's take a quick look at where we are at on the inflation front. Now, retail inflation came in at 3.65%. That's for the month of August, and that's compared to a print of 3.54% that we had seen in July. So, in July, in fact, inflation was almost at the lowest in almost 5 years, and despite a very small uptick in August, it remains under the central bank's 4% target. So we are looking at a print that's actually higher this time around in September, given some normalization in that month, and also the fact that the previous 2 prints were largely base effect led. What's also changed, of course, is several global factors. We have seen the US Fed begin cutting rates. It's cut rates by 50 basis points. We've also seen further deterioration in geopolitical factors. We're going to be watching out for how the US elections play out, what the impact on China is and its currency, and the repercussions on India. Still, for now, the MPC is expected to continue to focus on domestic factors, though some economists have not ruled out a change in stance.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Pallavi. So that's likely that we will have no big moves from the RBI come tomorrow. Madan Sabnawis joins us, Chief Economist at Bank of Baroda. Madan, hi, great to speak with you as always. Now, do you think that the debate shifts to whether the RBI is holding off for too long, or are you also penciling in a rate cut only by December, if at all?
No, in fact, I think that a rate cut is possible earliest in December. So I would say earliest in December because it would all be driven by data. We know very well that the low inflation numbers we had for July and August was primarily on account of the base effect. We also know that the inflation number for the month of September is going to come closer to 5%. 5.1% is what we are looking at. And this will probably stay also in the month of October. We also know that we've had certain late monsoons, heavy showers in the month of September in certain regions, and that has had an impact on the horticulture produce, especially vegetables. So I think there is an upward tendency in prices also, and that's something which the RBI will be keeping a close eye on. So therefore, I think that in this particular policy, it would be very prudent to maintain a status quo. And as was mentioned earlier, I think the geopolitical conditions have changed suddenly ever since this Iran-Israel issue came up, which also means that the entire world will be on guard right now. And I'm quite sure that if this happened before the Fed rate cut really took place, there might have been some tempering even on that side. So I think there has been a major change in the last 1 week or so, which will make all central bankers across the world to look very seriously at their actions and not just go by the immediate inflation number, which will also hold for India.
Madan, so what's that one standout thing that you would watch out for, Madan? I mean, guessing it won't be a rate decision. So what else? Would it the RBI's view on what's happening around the world? Could it be some statistic that should come about tomorrow? What is it that you would watch out for?
So actually, if we look at the RBI statement, the governor's statement is more or less standardized. So we know what comes in the first paragraph, second paragraph, and so on and so forth. So what could we be looking out for? One is, of course, the inflation forecast, because we know that in Q2, the RBI had earlier forecast a number of 4.4%. We have low numbers of 3.5, 3.7 for the first 2 months, maybe 5% for the third month. So there will be a change in the Q2 forecast for sure. But on the whole, we need to see whether that 4.5% number remains in that particular range or does it change significantly. The second will be in terms of the GDP forecast. I don't think there will be any change. And even though the last month has not really given positive numbers for the PMIs or even for that matter, even the core sector data, we all know that's been influenced by factors like base effects for the core sector. PMI cannot be read just in isolation. It's still well above 50. So I don't think there will be a change in the GDP growth forecast, but it will be interesting to hear what the RBI says. Because if I just talk to my own clan of economists, I think almost everybody has brought the forecast for GDP for this year closer towards the 7% mark. We had Bank of Baroda looking at 7.3%. So I don't think there will be any change right now. I think the overall conditions in the real economy appear to be very stable right now in that 7% region for sure. But I think what will be of interest, which we won't get to know tomorrow, I mean, tomorrow we'll get to know as to how the members voted. But in terms of the minutes which are released later on, as to how exactly have the three new members looked at this entire policy. Because I think that's very important, because that will give you a signal about how they would be looking at the growth inflation matrix going ahead.
Okay, just one point, Madan, on, your assessment on the economy right now. Of course, we'll hear from the Reserve Bank tomorrow. But the kind of consumption patterns that we're seeing, and we, of course, speak to the corporate side on a regular basis. Rural recovery, is it turning out into it to be an issue? Are you waiting to see what festive season is looking like?
Yeah, I think that will always be the issue for us, because rural demand typically picks up from the end of September into October, November, and December. That's when the Kharif harvest comes in. And going just by the IMD data, we know that the monsoon has been very good. It might have been too good in certain areas, which have already affected, as I mentioned, the onion crop. But on the whole, I think we would be expecting the rural economy, especially the agricultural sector, to do better than what it did last year, which means that any kind of pent-up demand which is there in the rural sector is something which should manifest in the months of October and November. So I think what we're going to see, the Dasara sales, the Diwali sales which are going on, which will start very soon, I think that will be the very critical point from the point of view of corporate India to see how really demand pans out, because I think it's been fairly subdued in the last couple of months, last couple of years. But this year we should also notice, we should also acknowledge the fact that inflation is still a major issue, because I think this has been one factor which has militated against consumption in the past, because with high inflation, high cumulative inflation, the real purchasing power of consumers has definitely been affected. We have seen some kind of a revival in Q1 going by the GDP numbers which have come out. So we do hope that this will be something which will be sustained, but that will be seen more in Q3 rather than in the Q2 corporate numbers.
Okay, thank you so much, Madan. Great to speak with you as always. And of course, we'll wait and watch what Governor Das says tomorrow. Remember, updated live and minute-by-minute coverage right here on NDTV Profit.